2. Well, we're live. Faster than I expect us to be live. And we have arrived. Today's game choice in the background is The Midnight Suns from Firaxis, the guys who make Civilization and XCOM. It's one of them games that's it's one of those games that I personally, Jack, say is an underrated gem. Like, it's one of those games that people go, "Oh, it's shit because it's a card battle," and I'm like, "It's really not. It's actually really good."
It is an interesting game. It's a mix between a card battler and an XCOM game. It's interesting.
Oh yeah, it's very much. Have you played Chimera Squadron?
No.
So it takes the stuff that they learned from that. I think that it's kind of like that, where it's like a self-contained, really short small story. Like, it's not exactly short. I remember my first playthrough of this game took me about 30, 40 hours to get through the game, doing everything.
Tony is still worrying about the missteps he made with Dr. Banner.
Oh yes, because at this point in the story...
Not sure he's ready to volunteer someone for the task.
What is the story?
At this point in the story, Banner's on the other side. And he's not... Thankfully, he's not the Hulk.
He's Maestro.
No, we just don't have a Hulk.
Oh, he's just died about.
Basically, at this point in the storyline, if you find this out, like in the first few missions when talking to Tony, that Banner can't turn into the Hulk at the minute. Like, he's trapped. Oh. He's stuck as Banner. He can't get the Hulk out.
Well, that's pretty useful then, especially if he's on the bad guy side.
Yep, but it does mean they have a completely unhinged Bruce Banner. That's the problem.
Was Bruce Banner ever really particularly hinged?
Yeah, but Bruce has a morality, has somewhat, has a moral code. He doesn't right now. Bruce doesn't have a moral code. It's a Bruce Banner with no moral code, and that's kind of dangerous. It's like, uh-oh. Because what the hell is he going to create with that? Though I have just done... I need to do, I think, another story mission in order to start doing the second DLC set of DLC missions.
Okay.
Because the second set of DLC missions is Venom. But I now have Storm. And I have Storm, which was the only character I didn't have when I started a New Game Plus, because I'd already technically finished the original 3 DLCs, and I'd uninstalled this game because I was... another game had come out, which was Total War Warhammer 3 had come out, and I didn't have as much space on my computer back then when that had come out. Excuse me. So I'd uninstalled this. I'm just running around the mansion at the minute. Look, we have one of my favourite characters. And you can't disagree with her. It's not one of the best. She's not one of the best characters.
I shall disagree whenever I want to.
What about Magic being one of the best characters?
Yeah. I might be wrong, but I can still disagree if I want to.
Well, you're always wrong, but that's besides the point. Let's lounge about in here. I love how when I lounge about in there, my horns suddenly disappear. Like...
Well, you can't go around and it's not be silly.
They don't disappear when I go into combat mode. Anyway, I'm going to check if I've done all this stuff in anyway, but Agatha Long's episode today. Yep, spoilers for people, unfortunately. There's going to be some spoilers.
But also, just on the fact that you're playing Midnight Suns, in the Marvel Universe there's been a bit of news and a bit of rumour mongering, but as it stands, there is no more Blade on the
Horizon,
recording list. Yeah, it has been taken off the movie list.
For next year, and putting in hold indefinitely at the moment. Oh look, speak of Maestro. There's Maestro.
But what is interesting is that there has now been more and more rumours around Midnight Sun being made instead.
I wouldn't put it past them, if I'm honest, to exploring that side of Marvel a bit more, like the darker, magical, thingy side of it, like, with the supernatural stuff. I wouldn't put it past them to explore that first as a team, and then we get the solo branching films for these characters.
Uh-huh.
Because I feel like that would, personally, as someone who's, as much as I like Blade, I feel like the Wesley Snipes movies might have not been like that long ago for some of us, like, because some of us grew up watching the Wesley Snipes movies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they are a little bit not as, like, for people that only started watching the Marvel, younger Marvel fans, only started watching with the newer films, in the current MCU. Oh yes, oh no, hello Wanda. But speak of the devil.
They're not as hyper polished.
No. So, and Blade being a character who is, a lot of people, like myself included, I will admit this fully, even though I've watched the Blade films, but when I was younger, I did not realise that Blade was a Marvel character until I saw him in the Spider-Man cartoon.
Well, there was actually a good reason for that. Pretty much for the first two films, they tried to avoid any connotation, any connections to the failing comic book company that's selling off all its rights left, right, and centre for cheap.
Yeah.
And it was very much hidden from a lot of people.
Yeah.
So they didn't use the Marvel logo on the film until the third film.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you go and watch Blade, though, on anything, it has the Marvel logo at the front. It actually now puts it at the start of the film, which is a nice change, because it's like I also will admit, as me and you have watched Deadpool and Wolverine, we've both watched it multiple times now. I will admit, watching that film, it is basically feels the thing that I've realised that film and No Way Home. Do you know what they both feel like to me? That they feel like Marvel going. Yeah, remember these guys that we had to sell off originally to kind of keep ourselves alive? We're kind of taking them back. We're taking them back and acknowledging without these guys we wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
and it also feels like Marvel's basically going, all these movies, other movies, they are technically all now part of the MCU. They are all like the origin of this cinematic universe that you've now kind of fallen in love with and everything. And I kind of like that. It's kind of it feels like that's what they're kind of doing. Going, this is our way of going. Yeah, all of these films are canon to the MCU. They're just different different parts of the multiverse.
Yeah, I think Kevin Feige. I don't think this is MCU. I think this is Kevin Feige in particular. I think he's the one that can easily get the thanks for this.
Oh yeah. But I also think
he's actually.
This is something. It's not only a joke in the when Deadpool's going, the multiverse saga is over, and then Lady Deadpool says it is over. Basically, I think that was them also. I think in that was them Marvel admitting that the multiverse saga isn't working out. I think they even left that joke in on purpose to go. We know it didn't work. We're going to we're going to end it, but we're ending it the way that it should end, which is. We're going to end it the way we ended it in about. I can't remember when God Emperor Doom is. It's in the 2010s. I know that the latest version of him. We're going to end him the way we ended it the last time, in the comics. Let's bring Doom, let's bring God Emperor Doom, and let's do the whole Battle Worlds, and that way they can throw in it a bunch of references to all the stuff they've done recently. Even like they can even use that film to throw in a bunch of live action references to the animated stuff they've done recently. I don't mean like 97, for example. I mean like, the What If stuff.
Yeah.
Throwing like little references to the What If stuff, and it'd be kind of interesting to see that if they do. I doubt they will, but it'll also be a nice way of them going. Yeah, we're going to bring back as many of these actors as we still can from the old Foxverse stuff. And I think me and you discussed from a meme that someone put up the other day, like I pitched someone up the other day of all the cast in the, one of those recolorings of all the cast from the X-Men series of films, having them all in the actual comic costumes. I would seriously, if they did a scene, just even if it's just like a it's like a 30-second part, like a 5-second part of like the final fight of the film, of just having Logan basically getting the X-Men, and you get them all that cast back just for like that one last scene to say, to send them off, of them go, those guys back, but in comic accurate costumes, and then I honestly think I did that, and then put the 97 theme behind it. It would be, that's how you send off the Fox universe, the Fox universe's X-Men. Of you just gave them their comic costumes and went, here, have your 97 X-Men actually in live action for one scene.
Yeah,
played by a guy who's seen playing
100%.
before. Also remember, Donut Lord is just always remember, Donut Lord is fucking Cyclops, and I will never forget that.
Well, yeah, I mean, who did the? I can't remember who did the Sonic Hedgehog comics. Can't remember who it was. I can't remember. I don't think.
No, I just find it funny that it's that I didn't realise it until someone pointed out to me that the guy that plays Donut Lord in. He's Cyclops. I was like, wait a minute, I didn't realise that. I did not realise that was Cyclops. I was like, oh, for God's sake.
So, which also does make another little thing funny, and it makes me wonder whether or not this conversation that has just been released by Marvel had been going around a bit, and Ryan Reynolds knew, because now that line of "there is only one Blade, there only ever will be" is kind of ringing a little bit more true if we're only talking about movie Blades.
Yes, because everyone forgets there's a TV show. To be fair, I think the joke of Deadpool looking at the TV at the screen was the reference to the TV series though, and not the Marshall Ali film. I don't
know now, because I think Ryan Reynolds might have known that it was an ill-fated thing.
It's sad because I would love to see Blade back and as much as I love Wesley Snipes, and I know he full well wants to,
yes,
he would play that character forever. I will be honest, it is one of the few things about he, as much as I love him, he isn't what's the word? I don't think he can pull it off as well anymore because of his age, and that's.
Yeah, I don't know. I think stuff can be done. We've seen stuff done with other actors, with a lot less help behind them. But the thing that with the Blade movies, though, the original 3, and actually I'm going to reduce it down to the original 2, that people forget is actually one, how much of a trendsetter that first film was, because all of the sort of that dark look and club scene stuff. What movie came out after that gets all the credit for that? The Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of similar aesthetics there from that first film that does populate onwards.
Oh yeah.
And it's actually a really good vampire film. The second one, on the other hand, has two fantastic little elements in it straight from the off that people forget. One of them is a fantastic starring role from Matt Goss as the hyper vampire, the uber vampire. But then an early directing turn from Guillermo del Toro, who would later go on to be what is now the horror director.
Yep.
That second movie was fucking awesome. I'll give you another third little reason to like it, especially if you're a Red Wolf fan. One of the assassin vampires that comes in to help Blade is Danny John Jules.
I know. I love the fact that I was like, wait a minute, Cat, get out of the movie.
No, it's just. I'm sure it's just because he had his own teeth. But yeah, that second film.
No, remember, it wasn't Danny Jules. It was Dwayne Dibley.
It's Dwayne Dibley
because he doesn't have cat teeth. Remember, he's Dwayne.
Yeah.
I love that joke has returned in every series of that show.
It pretty much in some form, yeah. Not every series, but in some form it is there. It's so yeah. like I said, those first two films are pretty awesome, but then the third one is kind of special, and I shall tell you for why it's special for me. Because when around about the time of seeing that, was around about the time I'm sure I saw a interview, and I'm still at secondary school at this point, with a young Ryan Reynolds, who is the dual katana wielding dude in that, talking about wanting to be another hero at that time, Deadpool. And when you look at the character he played,
if you actually pay attention to that film, he is meant to be Deadpool.
He's Deadpool.
No, yeah, that is straight up what he's meant to be. It was meant to be a
Wade Wilson, a mercenary.
Yeah, the whole point of that film was originally it was the first attempt at actually doing a shared universe thing, but the film just flopped, and I think they then got scared and changed the name of the characters. It's like, because that's actually what it pays, if you pay attention, is the thing that kind of goes all around it. It
was very close, and I remember it, and for me that was back then, almost a decade before it actually happened.
Yeah.
I was like, that is my Deadpool right there. And yeah, he ended up being Deadpool. Everyone's Deadpool. So it's a good film. It's the film that gives you Triple H as a vampire and a mutated vampire Chihuahua. There are things to love in that film. But I think I could see, I could easily see Wesley Snipes coming back as a Blade. Maybe not as the prime actor in it.
No.
But as part of an ensemble.
I could see him. I could see them bringing any of those guys back for Secret Wars or Doomsday, because we know that they are the end of the multiverse saga. That's kind of the whole point of them. This is we know that it's the end of the multiverse saga essentially, because it was originally meant to be Kang and then Secret Wars. Kang didn't see Secret Wars, but instead we've now got we've got Doomsday then Secret Wars. So Doom is being the main bad guy.
It's true. But also, I think it was the last podcast we spoke about, there had been at that time more and more stories out of actually one of the reasons that before any of the allegations about Jonathan Majors were out or anything could even happen, there was loads of major rewrites and reshoots on Quantum Mania anyway. There's many reasons why that film is very confused. And it was looking like they were, even back then before the allegations, moving the story away from the future being Kang and more the future towards being Doom anyway. It'd be interesting to see what the future would have held without the Jonathan Majors instance, because we may have found out it goes almost exactly the same way as we're seeing it going now anyway.
The only thing that changed is it's not Kang, it's Doom.
It was always going to be Doom. Yeah. Well, not always going to be Doom. Like I say, there was the rumour mill and stuff was that came out about a month ago was actually midway through Quantum Mania before the allegations. There was already a big sort of narrative push to change stuff around, because there was going to be a change of the big villain at the end anyway. That's why it'd be interesting. I mean, we're never going to be able to see both things play out, so we never know what would have been the future or what is going to be the future. But yeah, so apparently they were already moving towards a different villain, as in Doom-esque villain, taking over from Kang anyway. So apparently we haven't lost much.
Oh yeah, but it's one of those things that we can speculate on what we think they're gonna, or what they were doing, and from all the rumors around it, but we don't 100% know what the whole rumors are. That's the problem. What's true and what's a rumor until we get something off them. But they're not going to tell us stuff like that, because stuff like then it looks like they don't have because then it's like, but It is sad, I will admit, as someone who absolutely genuinely enjoyed Jonathan Major's portrayal of Kang, because that was just absolutely brilliant. His portrayal of Kang was brilliant in my opinion. It's like, as I've said before, I think I've said it multiple times on this episode, on this podcast, of of that line, the "Have I killed you before?" and the way he says it so calmly, like with no malice, no nothing behind his voice. It's just plainly says. He plainly says, "Are you the one with the hammer?"
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't even remember who any of them are except Thor. That's how bad it is. If this villain is literally only remembering Thor, you kind of know this villain is like, oh shit, we're fucked. Levels of villain.
Oh, yeah.
He's only remembering the god, none of the others, which kind of hints that he just dispatches Tony and Cap like they're nothing.
But even then, he doesn't really remember the god. Just the thing he probably took off of him.
Yeah. And that's what makes Kang such a great villain. Even in the comics, he's such a great villain. 'Cause, like, people often forget the first time Kang appeared was he did literally wipe the floor with the Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, it's depending when you consider his first appearance, I guess.
But also, well, it's not just that. It's like one of his like major first appearance, like his first I'm a, like his big major first storyline was he just wipes the floor with half of them. They have to use like a backup team to deal with him because all the others are dead and have to basically reverse what he's done to stop everything. It's like the major X-Men storyline that I remember. Not remember. That I love. That I think my problems with the movie. We've discussed the movie multiple times. We're not going to get the road cut is a hell of a lot better than the original. But my major issue with that film is that they replaced Kitty Pryde with Logan being the main character instead of and because that's my major issue with that film. I'm one of those people that's like, why is Logan the main character again? Like, I love Hugh Jackman and everything, but he wasn't the main character in the comic. The comic is Kitty Pryde's the one that saves everyone. Because it was meant to be her comic to shine.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I get what you're saying there, but you've got to think of things at the time. They're trying to sell a movie.
Oh yeah,
and as great as Elliot Page was. Yeah, I couldn't remember what his name was for a sec. Was in that. They were never the Paul. None of the other X-Men were the Paul. It was always going to be Wolverine. I mean, literally, even in the new films, they had to use Hugh Jackman.
Oh yeah, to sell it.
Sparingly. There's going to be a Hugh Jackman that goes through the first one, and Hugh Jackman's in the second one, goes through that. I will admit, I love the fact the film basically kind of rewrote X-Men 3 out of existence and everything. Yeah.
And kind of, but people hate Dark Phoenix, and I'm one of those people. I don't know if I'm one of the people that's like that, but I actually genuinely liked Dark Phoenix.
Sounds familiar.
With Sophie Lillis, it's not amazing, it's not brilliant. I will never say it's amazing.
It was interesting. I thought it was a lot better done than X-Men 3. Last Stand.
It was definitely done better than Last Stand. Last Stand was just, we're going to have a big superhero fight, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, and I think the big problem they had there is they tried to condense a very big story down to one film.
And I think the worst bit when they're doing that was it was also at the period where films were starting to split the second, their last film into two parts as well.
And this would have been the perfect time to do that.
Yeah, Dark Phoenix Part 1 ends with, Jean. We've got Jean back, she's got the powers, and the end of it is basically could have been the Hellfire Club part where, where she, starts becoming Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, well, that's it. All the first film would be Rise of the Phoenix. The second one would be Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
Um,
And the third one would be could introduce Leo. Because they could have, the second one they could have had the whole introduction of the Landra and the Shi'ar and Charles and Landra's stuff, and the whole, and having the X-Men fight of having them fight Gladiator and the Shi'ar Royal Guard, and doing the fight on the moon, and you could have had this nice little callback to the actual comics and stuff. But instead, Fox went, we're going to rush it in one film. It's like...
Well, yes, and I think the other problem is that they were so proud of what they were accomplishing over the original version of the Dark Phoenix story that was done in the films.
Yeah.
That they didn't spend any actual time wondering whether or not it was actually better, and not just as bad.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. I actually do enjoy the full run of the First Class films. I even enjoy Apocalypse is objectively a bad film, but it's in amongst all four of them, it's not the worst.
Oh yeah, it's not the worst. The worst one out of those three franchises, and I think you'll probably agree with me on out of that second run, is I'm going to say Age of Apocalypse, and it's only because they did my favourite villain wrong, so bad.
I mean, that's exactly what I've just said. Like I said, Age of Apocalypse is objectively a bad film.
The only good thing about Age of Apocalypse is we got introduced to the best version of Quicksilver, in my opinion.
I agree, but yeah, once again, once it's said and done, in amongst those four films, it's actually not bad. It kind of tells it's part of telling its story.
Yeah,
it's the worst one out of the four. It's not going to win any awards. No one's ever going to sit there and watch that one on its own. You're going to watch it because you've just watched the second one, and you probably want to watch the fourth one just to get it all done. So you watch the third one just because. It's that's it.
What's the word you're looking for, Jax?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You're only going to be most people are never going to watch that film. I would say as it's the one I want to watch.
No.
You're going to be watching 1 and 2, and then you're going to go, I'll watch the third one, and then go, I might watch the fourth.
I will admit, as much as I feel it's a bad film, I do watch that film occasionally because it's one I watch, but it's only because it's the only live action representation we've ever got of Apocalypse, and that's the only reason why. Because Oscar Isaacs, despite the terrible, he's very good in the role, despite how bad he actually looks as Apocalypse, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. And it's once again, this all comes down to people making the film not having the balls to actually go comic book accurate.
No. And what happened? The first film we've had that's gone full on comic book accurate, and I mean, because let's be honest, every character in that film that was shown, other than that was, that was wearing their costumes were comic book accurate costumes, other than the bad guys that were mostly meant to represent the Fox bad guys.
Yeah. They were there representing a particular version of that character that we have seen before.
Yeah, whereas all Elektra, Blade, Gambit, Logan and Daphne and X-23 we're all in the comic book accurate costumes. Even Johnny was in it. He's yes, he's in this Fantastic Four costume, and it's the highest grossing comic book movie that we've had in the last few years. Why? Because they went comic book freaking accurate. Have you noticed as well? Even though with for all along, with last week's episode, where we found out that they did. What did they fully embrace? The comic book origins of Wiccan.
Yeah.
They actually embraced it and went, yeah, we're going to start doing that. It seems Marvel and Kevin's finally got it through their head to just let them do the stuff from the comics, and it works. It's why Marvel's MCU's work so well, is that Marvel hasn't shied away from the comics. It's just that what Marvel is they've kind of, the MCU is, if you've paid attention, is the old Ultimate Marvel universe. That's what they've kind of done. They've took the old Ultimate Marvel universe and done that rather than the 616 universe, because they realised this universe was quite popular by people because it was considered the darker version of their universe, but people actually generally enjoyed it. That's why they've kind of gone with it.
I mean, the MCU universe is meant to be was always meant to be a representation of the Ultimate Universe anyway. Because the Ultimate Universe was meant to be more grounded in reality.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what we've seen in the character builds.
Yeah,
I mean, even with things like Thor, he's like, well, you call it magic, some call it science. We kind of have this thing in between where it's a bit of both, you know.
It's sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah. Although, but here's the thing: what started to happen was as the MCU got popular and they populated it with more characters, you actually started getting characters that were never really fully explained in the Ultimate series, if they even appeared in the Ultimate series.
Yeah. Also, the Ultimate series did give us one of the best villains in the form of a certain someone.
Yeah, but the thing is that they come out then with characters that have got powers that are completely off powers or backstories or whatever. It's not completely grounded within the set MCU rules, and then they kind of try and fudge it. But
now they start to realise just don't fudge it, just embrace it, because that's what people are wanting.
Yeah. Don't try. Yeah. Exactly what. Yeah. Don't try and sort of enforce these Ultimate style rules in which they kind of have to be in some way grounded, and just make them weird, make them cosmic.
Like we've got let's be honest, Captain Marvel is straight up power cosmic, and people go, oh, I would love her to have some people go, oh, why has she got a power straight away and why is she so powerful? And I'm like, because that's quite literally what Carol Danvers is. Carol Danvers is kind of, even in the comics, Carol Danvers is not the most likable character, and that's kind of the point of her. Like, even in the comics, she's not very likable because she's the whole reason Civil War 2 starts. Because
I would argue that by the time Carol Danvers becomes Captain Marvel, because of her history within the comic book with the different characters that she has portrayed, and things that have actually happened to her, in the comic books, she has a right to be a bit of an arsehole and to actually stand up against the core four and go, no, you're wrong. And you know what? I'm also the most powerful person in the room. So, you know what? We're going to be following my rule.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is what I've earned, and this is why I've earned it against you guys. Captain America, Iron Man, Hank Pym, and Reed Richards, all the smartest people in the world, and this is how you've constantly fucked me over and fucked over the people around you. I'm telling you. Whereas in the films, they just went, the superpowered one that's a bit of a dick.
Well, and also the films, like her first movie, a lot of people forget that her first movie was set during the 80s, and even at the end of that, she hadn't had any control of her power, basically, like that much in that film, but even by the end. It's very much that, because forget that Avengers is set nearly 30 years after her first film technically set, so she technically has control of her powers more when she reappears back in, in Endgame. But I do personally think that her movie should have come out back before Infinity War, quite early, after Age of Ultron, or before it or after Age of Ultron. Like, it should have been then. Having this little backstory, think of this other hero, and then because then you could have had, okay, who's this hero? Why have we not seen this hero again? And then you have them show back up again in, like the end credit scenes of Infinity War or of another movie, or when stuff's hit the fan and everything. Like, the Infinity War bit where he presses the pager for Captain Marvel, because then you've got people going, where's this character that we've not seen for ages? And then suddenly pops back up at the end of, in Infinity War when everyone's being dusted, and it's, because then it also would have established timeline-wise, given them a bit more time, if you know what I mean, to possibly throw in one or two films set in between, to have like set in the past a bit to sort of build her up a bit more. I will admit the main issue with Captain Marvel in the MCU is that showed her like back in the 80s, 90s, when she was still getting used to her powers and everything.
Yeah.
And then they show her arriving. Only then, the next time we meet her is in Endgame, and she's and she's the thing that the ship basically starts shooting at because oh shit.
Now, right. See, here's the thing. That I actually do think was perfect.
Oh yeah,
and kind of how, because there's a character called Blue Marvel in the comic books. I don't know if you know much about them, but they were the most powerful. They're up there as one of the most powerful characters, literally on Franklin Richard tier levels. But it turns out that they were a hero back in the early days with Reed Richards when Fantastic Four first started. But something happened and he was forgotten to history for many reasons. And so as a reader, you don't know about this character. You've never seen someone appearing every so often, and it's been a bit weird. And they've retroactively continuited him in other stories. And it turns out he's this character, Blue Marvel, and he does exactly that. At that moment where everyone's fucked, he's like, "Boom! I am here, and I'm going to fuck up a Beyonder because I can fuck up a Beyonder." So yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that was, and I kind of and her coming in at that point as Captain Marvel, in the full glory of it all, was perfect.
Oh no, I don't agree with the scene in Endgame, but I think it's the way, unfortunately for Captain Marvel in the like live action has been handled is we got a movie of her where she's getting her powers, learning her powers, but at the end of the movie she hasn't mastered them, and then the next time we meet her is like in timeline wise is just 20 years later. We don't see the development in between, if that makes sense. That's the problem, I think, for her.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, so because my problem is with the first film, and how the timeline works in that film. My problem is that so like with her just coming back because like this is the one time that Nick Fury needed her out of all these decades, and everything has truly gone wrong. This is the first time Nick Fury has gone, I'm actually scared. That's why I need her back. That makes sense to me, and we don't need a progression from that first film. If the first film was kind of like a time jumping film anyway, in which you start off learning about Carol Danvers and all that stuff there, and she's got powers, and then throughout the course of that film, you see her, and that means the story of her finding out who Veers is and all that stuff has to be longer, has to be told more like the movie Duel over time.
Yeah.
But over that time, you see her not only get better powers and used to her powers, but the code name changes, and at least then you keep the core story as an element of that character. She goes through the Miss Marvel because she's with Marvel, and then she'll go into Warbird, go into Binary, because her powers have shifted in those aspects, and then when you finally get her at the end of that, because it is a Captain Marvel film, it's her in the costume, ready to go, and that's when the beeper goes off, and that's when she's got to go back, and then that would make some fantastic sense, and you'd see a progression of the character. It means you could have hints of other things in there, because at this point as well, the idea of Kang being a villain is a thing in their heads, in the background. So at some point, someone must have gone, well, if we're going whole heavy on Captain Marvel, at some point Captain Marvel's going to meet Kang. Well, there is a really big, important story in the Captain Marvel history that involves her and Immortus, and the Avengers fucking up big. It wouldn't. I know that's probably a storyline they wouldn't use in Marvel cinematic stuff. Because
we're not going to get. Unfortunately, we're not going to get that. One thing that makes me kind of happy is that we hopefully it's not going to get like thrown under the bus with the rewrites happening for season 2 of X-Men '97. But the bits we got at the end of that season where we know we have half the X-Men in Ancient Egypt, and we know that we're about to get Apocalypse's origin story a little bit. I'm really hoping that we're not going to rush through it, and we're going to get the whole, origin of Apocalypse, where, Apocalypse overthrowing Ramatut, who's Ramatut, Jax?
Ramatut is a very, very, very old name for Kang.
Yep. It's one of his lovely variants of him. Because I love that the actually that happened to Kang is you remember correctly, in the original continuity universe of the thing, it's all the variants of Kang are actually from the same universe. They just kind of got split or something, and you had all of his fucking versions of him split across different points in history.
So Kang,
which is what happened, which created all the other versions, including Ramatut and Immortus originally.
Here's the best way I've heard it explained, and it was by Comic Books Explained, is to work out the sort of history of Kang and Immortus and shit like that, is to think of you. You are a young Kang, and you're just living your life, and you go through and you do some other stuff, and at some point you learn that about time travel, and you learn about multiple timelines. Now, you obviously want to do the obviously, because if you've got the ability to time travel, you're going to want to make sure that you are then safe to carry on doing your thing, because time can change. So you would actually go back and make sure that you in the past knows this knowledge, and give a few more hints. Just, I did this wrong, I did that wrong. Now, because you've now done that loop, you're going to constantly have to then go and do that loop. So that's one loop that's already in play. At some point in the future, you have to go back and tell the young person how to improve their system and to keep themselves safe, and so that loop happens. But that happens then so many times that you've now got multiple versions of Kang doing this. And at some point, although you're all still the same one of them, let's say the first one in this loop, goes off and becomes a guy called Ramatut for a bit, goes back to ancient Egypt. And does his stuff and gets into a fight with the Fantastic Four. But then, and he gets defeated and then goes off. But then,
the irony being, what is? Do you remember what Kang's actual name is, Jax?
Kang's name. What was his name?
Nathaniel Richards.
Nathaniel. Oh yeah.
Who's his fucking grandfather? It's like, oh, fuck off. It's the fact that Kang is originally the original timeline version of Kang is Reed's fucking grandson. Well, it's like, is one of Reed Richards' great something grandson, and it's like, oh, it's kind of the funny part about Kang that he technically originally.
Well, there is maybe a small issue in that.
1, 2, 3.
So there is this weird connection over who is actually connected to, because the Richards name also at some point has another genus added into it.
Oh yeah,
Victor Von Doom, and there is a whole storyline in which Doom and a Immortus or a young Kang.
Well, yeah, I've read part of that comic, and Kang then tries to betray Doom and gets his ass handed to him by Doom. It's just like, and I love the fact that he tries to betray him. It's kind of like, stop! Why did you try and betray Doom?
Yeah, but here's the thing: so the costume recognizes the DNA of Richards, and that's when the question is asked does that mean I'm related to? And Doom's reply is, it's complicated. Which I would say suggests that actually the Richards may be the name that is propagated into the future, but the actual genetics is probably from whoever's child is Doom, because that's going to be the one that marries in, the daughter.
I still find it hilarious that Victor. I still find Victor Von Doom hilarious though. Like, it's the fact that like he hates Richards with a passion, but Valeria's like is basically like his daughter to him as far as he's concerned. I love it.
Well, ever since Secret Wars, yeah. I don't know if you've read the actual Secret Wars.
I've got the whole thing. Like, I actually physically own the whole Secret Wars, like including all the various other little ones, the little collection books of all the other stories set in it. I own the main storyline and that. It's why it's one of the ones where it made me an appreciation for the maker. Because
I mean, I just like the line in it though from Reed when they're like just having that god battle. When it's not really it's an unpowered god battle. It's really weird. And in Reese's little space, and it's like you created an entire universe with its pure goal being you being a god that replaces me and my family. What is that? And then when Richard takes over, Richard's family takes over as being the gods instead, and he walks out into and Doom walks out into off the side of the castle and looks out. He realises that Reed's giving him his face back. He's got no reason to hide behind the mask other than to be the dictator behind the mask.
Yep.
It's his choice now.
I know. I love it because it's just the sheer fact that that it's not just like his face, but it's the fact that Reed, even though that he knows Doom hates his guts, still does technically does something nice for Victor. That's the bit that I find funny. Like,
the thing I see it as such schadenfreude because yes, it is a nice thing. It's a nice thing to do. He's given back his face, his beautiful face. He's not scarred anymore. And that's the thing that you always said was made him so bitter.
Oh yeah.
But once again, Reed beat him, but instead of destroying him, gave him his wish.
Yep.
Because Reed is still better than him.
Oh yeah. The problem with Reed, the problem is Reed Richards might be better than him. The other issue is Reed Richards has this lovely habit of you leave him alone long enough, he becomes the maker every fucking time, and it's like you kind of need someone. It's the reality of the fact is the only reason that the Reed Richards in the main Marvel universe has not become a bad guy is Susan fucking Storm at this point. Susan and Ben at this point are the only reasons that Reed Richards in the main universe hasn't become a bad guy. They're like the one difference.
It's quite interesting that you see it in actually the hyper smart characters in Marvel. I guess to a less extent with Tony Stark.
Well, we've seen it. We have seen it with Tony Stark like twice. We've seen Superior Iron Man, which is the one where he does himself become evil, and then there's the Iron Doom version of him where Doom takes over.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm thinking because the more Tony Stark had the whole demon in a bottle storyline, but with characters like Hank Pym and Reed Richards and Bruce Banner, all of them, when left in complete isolation without connection or care or love, all become villains.
Yeah.
But literally in every when they snap, Hank Pym becomes the Yellow Jacket.
Yep.
And goes on mass fucking killing spree. And Reed Richards becomes the maker, and Bruce Banner becomes pretty nasty on his own, but his evil version is Maestro.
Yep, it's a thing of you forget that it's because the reality of it is the thing that keeps the super smart characters from Marvel not being these absolute horrific psychopaths is they all have someone that grounds them to other people. Like for Tony, it's always either it's Pepper and Happy Hogan. Let's be honest, they're the two characters that are always with Tony that kind of ground him to everyone.
Yeah.
And Cap, because that's the point. It's Cap. That's what Cap is to everyone. He's not just that he is essentially the Superman of the MCU in terms of personality is what I mean, not in terms of powers. You know what I mean? He's the Blue Boy Scout, but it's the fact that Cap is like the heart of the Avengers. Bruce, it is Betty. It's his cousin Jen. Surprisingly, it's She-Hulk Jen, and it's Tony and the other like the rest of the Avengers because they actually accept him even as the Hulk, and that's the thing. That and one person for definite is Clint frickin' Barton. Is Clint frickin' Barton because he's the only person he trusted enough to fucking kill him. Let's remember that.
Well, I would argue that in the second Civil War, that he chumped him out of that kill.
But you get what I mean. Like it's and with Reed Richards, it's quite literally Susan and Ben, because if Reed didn't have his kids or Sue, Reed just slowly becomes the Maker every time. Like even the other the Maker even did that experiment. Remember on the other Reeds? Remember of one of those Reeds where he basically took away all of anyone that was his support system. And that Reed slowly just starts to become more and more fucking unhinged and evil because he starts to do more and more shit to just because he can justify it. And it's like because it's the fallacy of it's because it's the. It's also an old adage, the old adage of genius and madness are two sides of the same coin. That's what it is. It's that older, saying.
Old adage.
Yeah, old adage of just the fact that because it is reality of people complain, why they keep making Reed evil, and I'm just like because unfortunately that's what happens when you leave someone who has the potential to do good or evil alone with no ethics. With no one to tell him, you shouldn't be making a death ray, Reed.
Well, pretty much, yeah.
Of someone to tell him that you probably shouldn't make the thing that's going to kill everyone in the room. I will just a second.
I am holding.
I'm just going to have to do something a second. I will just. Well, this is the first time for everything, but. Whoa. But yeah.
Right.
It's fine. My brain went for a shutdown second.
Fair enough.
But yeah. Reed's we start with Infamous Iron. It's Infamous Iron Man's when where Doom takes over his body. That's it. Infamous Iron Man's Doom. Superior Iron Man is when he basically where he literally becomes ruler of the world because Tony just goes makes all sorts of insane shit and is left unchecked. Yeah, it's the point of a lot of those heroes is that if you leave them unchecked, they're kind of just going to start inventing stuff because they think they know better. Because unfortunately, it's even a thing we see with smart people today. People there's a difference between being intelligent and being smart. But being intelligent usually means you're smart, but you can you understand that you're not better than everyone, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Whereas people who think they're smart just assume that because they're more intelligent than other people, they're the ones who can decide everything for everyone else. If you know what I mean. They think that only that what they say matters rather than what everyone says, than listening to different things. Like no, what I say we should do is what we should do. And that is a fact. That's what needs to be done. That's what a lot of those characters are in Marvel. They're smart. They're not necessarily fully intelligent. They're smart, unfortunately. Yeah. Whereas like characters like Peter Parker is an intelligent character because Peter's whole thing is no matter what shit happens to Peter just seems to always be always seems to try and keep that positive outlook and everything, and tries to do things for the little person, not for the little guy.
That's it. I mean, there's also, weird enough, in the Marvel comics, there is actually different, like you've mentioned there, different dimensions to what intelligence actually is and smartness actually is.
For example, I would not call Professor X smart. Professor X intelligent.
Well, no, for example, like Reed Richards can create some fantastic devices, and you know, and even work out what to do for a lot of extent on other people's like other races' devices.
Oh yeah.
Like you put Tony Stark with nothing in an alien environment, he will make you an alien version of one of his suits and improve the other alien person's shit.
Oh yeah. I mean,
so
what is it? Reed's the one that made during the First Civil War. Who was it who made the frickin' prison that they started putting all the other heroes and stuff in when they wouldn't comply with the Registration Act? Reed made that prison, and that prison was not a smart thing to make.
I believe it was Reed designed it. Stark
helped him build it. Reed helped him build it because
Reed's him. I can't remember which way around it was. It was the trifecta. They all got involved in building that in some aspect. They all took a different part in building it.
And that's what happens when you put three people that are smart in the room with no one to question what they're doing. They worked together and made basically one of the technically, in my opinion, one of the most evil prisons in the one of the most evil prisons in the Marvel universe. Not the most evil prison, obviously, because we have seen worse in some of the other comics, but. The fact that prison was basically, we're not only putting you in here, we're going to isolate you from everyone else in the universe.
Yeah, it's basically just a negative space. Well, I mean, that's the other thing. You've got, so I'm just gone off on a tangent here. I've just realised there's this whole, I don't know, they've been talking about that. The reason that with the Fantastic Four coming in, you've now got the whole negative verse stuff, or the inverse stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering how they're going to fold that in.
I have a feeling that in the current iteration of the MCU we have now, because we're only getting the Fantastic Four, we're getting basically for one movie, and that's it. Then we're getting is what the current thing is. Apparently, they're only going to be the Fantastic Four for the next 3 films that come out, essentially. Yeah. I feel. We're not going to get that until we get the Fantastic Four. If the rumours are right, and what it seems is happening, that Secret Wars is essentially going to end with Reed defeating Doom. I feel that Fantastic Four that have just been introduced, kind of like Captain Marvel was in, Endgame, is going to be that big. This is their I win button, basically, because it'll be them finding Reed. And I have a feeling that I do hope we do get at least one of the other 2 Reed Richards back from, the films. And I kind of agree with you on bringing the Fantastic Four stick guys back. Fantastic Four sticks guy back. And have him become the Maker. And having that... With that way we get, our lovely friend... our lovely friend... Thanos back, because remember he was in the ship with the Maker in the comic.
Yeah.
So that's how we get a bunch of these villains that have been defeated back in that movie. Going, oh yeah, this guy brought these guys over from his universe. It's like, oh no.
I think it's a great idea. I think there's so much they can do with the premise of Secret Wars, and especially if the battle world that they actually build. Mm-hmm. Instead of is just chunks of a place, becomes chunks of a place with a population on it of the heroes from whichever franchise or universe they were attached to.
It is also a good opportunity for them to kind of do what the show I love, one of the few DC shows I love and that you love as well, The Flash, is one of those one of their opportunities to do a little thing, even if it's not even like even if it's just like a small reference, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like you just see one of those old actors from those old TV shows or films in their costume, like one last for like a 5-second cameo.
Yeah.
I would love them just to do that and have like loads of them, even if they're old characters, even if they're old now, and having them like not in the costume, but having them like like the Robin one from the Adam West one in the Flash in Crisis on Infinite Earths, where it's just holy bells, just like oh dear. The minute you said that, I was like, wait a minute, that was Robin. How did I not realise that was Robin? Just like, I was like, oh, to the minute you said it, I was like, wait a minute, is that Adam West's universe?
But there's two good reasons why you wouldn't have recognised him as Burt Ward. One, he wasn't in his costume.
And two, he's a lot older than he's a little bit fatter than he was back then.
And two, because he was out of costume, he wasn't signing an autograph with his own seal. So
I'm sorry, I need to hear the story for this one now. This is entirely going to sidetrack me for the next 5 minutes.
Oh, so this is in both Adam West and his own autobiographies, in which there is a story told where they were so popular, and once again, not cancelled. No one complained. But yeah, he would on more than one occasion when a young woman asked to have an autograph signed, he would just whip his dick out and sign it with his own ink. Yeah. So that's about all for you.
Oh yeah, but it's also you've got to take into account some of these things also taken into the context of the time they were.
Oh yes, yeah,
that's the thing that a lot. That's one of my things. It's like we were watching. I can't remember what it was. It's an old British show where unfortunately one of the actors was later, turned out to be a thingy fiddler. Like,
yeah.
Well, the word we can't say on YouTube.
Yeah.
Basically, was a fiddler basically, and I was like, I'm trying to earn this because he was on them. I'm like, it's because he's dead. I think the major issue people have with that stuff nowadays is with actors, and why people complain, I don't want to see that actor and stuff, is what people don't get, that people that go, well, why do they do that for this and not these guys? I'm like, they're dead, they don't benefit from it. Whereas if you show like X show with X person that has been, convicted of X thing,
yeah,
they get royalties for the show being aired.
Well, here's the thing, as well with stuff like I know when people say that I am actually, and I agree with you on especially a lot of stuff when people start trying to flat back at stuff 40 years ago. It's like no, you've got to understand that they're of a time.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things were actually verbatim and PC back then. For all the person you're going to go at was actually the most liberal person of their time. They were you back then before the rules changed.
Yeah, and also a lot of these, it's like a lot of these shows now. I don't mind shows like being aired as long as they put if they put the content warning at the front. I have no issue with the content warning at the front because they even state on the content warning that this show was filmed in a different period. Some of the content may not be suitable for viewers today, and I don't mind that. I don't get why people complain about that because it's not a trigger warning. It's just them basically pointing out that things have changed and some of the jokes in these shows don't age well.
Now, that being said, I think some things, by the argument of they were of their time, does not stand up. And there are some things that I think that people have completely, for understandable reasons, completely dismissed as something else other than it should be without even considering it. So, for example, there was a sitcom. Oh, please Google this to prove that I'm right here. There was a sitcom that came out, and it was called "Hell, Honey, I'm Home," and it was a sitcom about the Hitlers and them constantly trying to kill their next door neighbours. But failing miserably. Think 1 Foot in the Grave,
but with a Nazi flag. Um,
Never seen it, never heard of it.
no, you wouldn't have said it. Only managed to air for one episode before people went, what? And yeah, it is an oddity, but please Google it just to prove it was real. It is weird. The few clips that do exist, you can, if watching it, you can understand that it was definitely an out and out farce.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you're never going to watch it and go, oh, they support the Nazi Party. It's it's going to be a joke, but it was just wrong in every aspect.
It was just in poor taste, basically.
Yeah. On the other side of this, there is a show that I actually do think should be shown more often, even though it does have a white dude blacked up, or he's darkened his skin to play a Indian Muslim, and it is called Curry and Chips, and it was written by
Was it Spike Milligan by any chance? The guy
Spike Milligan, yeah.
The guy that did the Pakistani Dalek.
He did. There is many reasons. There is context to the reasons why he did things like this, and people forget this context that wasn't forgotten back then. But Curry and Chips was about a Muslim immigrant working in a northern factory where they are constantly, and including a young black guy in it, are throwing racial slurs at him because he's an immigrant. He's like literally just off the boat. And there is a lot of anti-Muslim stuff in there. This is in the 70s. And then there's actually, but the back of that is actually, it stops when, and there's always a moral to the end of each story, when Spike Milligan's character, the Muslim character, actually says, no, listen, this is the truth of it, and this is why you're arrogant and ignorant. And then there's even one of my favourite episodes in that is when a random dude from another workhouse comes in to do something and starts just really slagging him off for being this dumb immigrant, and everyone else turns around and goes, whoa, what the fuck are you doing, Sam? You don't talk to one of our friends like that. Oh, you need to come. And they all go on this guy and say, actually, no, you're wrong. And at the end of it, he's like, well, wait a minute. This morning you were saying this word to me and that word to me, but as soon as he says it, I'm your friend. Oh, yeah, but we only say it out of love. But it's not love to me. It's the same. Him saying it and you saying it's the same, right? And they all just sort of look at each other and go, ah. And it's really a hard-hitting show when you watch it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It's never going to get showed again because it's actually got a guy that's darked up in that. The whole message of the story is of the piece is removed because of one aspect, which I think is quite sad, because Spike Milligan's history was he was born in India. As quite a few people were back then because of the old Raj that was emptying and coming back to England. Part of my family did the same, and he always loved it. The way he described it was, I went from a beautiful place of colour and wonder and everything, and I was moved to this grey place that rained all the time, that had no colour. It was just grey and brown. I don't,
So there is one thing. There's a game that I think you already know how excited I am for the game. I'm like, I literally want the game that comes out next Thursday. That's going to date this video, but it's all right. We already know when this video is dated. It's dated this on a Thursday, a week today. Dragon Age Veilguard.
I thought you meant Barbie's Great Big Beach House Part 2.
I already got that. Ordered, man. Don't you know this? I already have that ordered. You should know this.
You had that pre-order.
It's a Barbie thing, man. I always pre-order it.
I know, it's like me and Brony stuff.
Exactly. Anyone who's not English will not understand the fact that both of us are being incredibly sarcastic. No, but it's Dragon Age Veilguard. I'm excited for it because I love Dragon Age. I've been waiting 10 frigging years since the last game to finally play this. And I've been laughing at the minute because the anti-woke crowd keeps trying to go the people that are all about the anti-woke stuff in there, and it's going to get flops of the year. Someone made a tier list in an RPG group today that I'm in, and put in shit games never waste of money, and put the game in the waste of money in almost every comment, even though normally in this group the game gets you get a lot of posts that sort of shit on the game for some reason, just because of the fact they've included top surgery scars and a bunch of like representation stuff in the game to allow players to make whatever character they want to make. You know, stuff that if you hate that shit, you can ignore it. Why the fuck are you complaining that they put it in the game for someone else to have it? That's why I never understand the hate for this stuff, because doesn't affect you. It's a character customization option to make people represented. And I'm like looking at it, but no, and it's like almost every comment in this one thread for the first time was like basically shitting on the dude for saying, you put this game and this game there, and they're not even out yet, and they're in the shit tier. What the fuck are you on about? How can you judge a game before it's even out? Do you want to know how confident BioWare are in the game? They've literally dropped the review ban. They're dropping the review ban on Tuesday for the game. You know how like when companies are worried about how bad a game's going to do, they don't drop the ban until the day of release. BioWare, like EA and BioWare, are confident in the game enough to drop the ban 3 days before it comes out. Like to give people the reviews and stuff before the game's even out. I'm pretty sure that's unheard of usually from modern game devs. You don't normally get the review like before the game comes out. You get it at the day of release usually, or the day before. But I'm like looking at it at the minute.
I remember. So I will say that yes and no to what you're saying. I'm hoping on your end it's going to be good.
Well, I'm hoping it's good. I'm just like I'm not hoping it's good. It's just that all I want to do is I'm hoping it's a fitting conclusion to the story. And genuinely, I was looking at some of the videos like the devs have done of of like the gameplay and stuff, and I don't get what people are saying when they're saying there's no difference in the gameplay between the classes, and I'm like, but there is, because like the the 3 different classes that you can play as, because they've simplified it down to warrior, rogue, and mage in this one, from what it looks like, which I remember is the original 3 classes from the first game. And all they've done is because that's what they've done. They just simplified it back to what it was originally, and I have no issue with that. I have no issue with the character cast, but the thing that it's not that particularly is what I was going to raise. My thing I was going to raise is what with that particular that I keep seeing in stuff is people going, what is it? An impossibly diverse cast is for a European fantasy game, or for a medieval fantasy game, and I'm like, and my brain just goes, just like disconnects at the word them saying fantasy, and then saying impossibly diverse cast. I'm like, it's a fantasy universe. Characters from all like these different species can be anything because it's fantasy, and that's the point.
It's not real. It's fiction. They're fictional characters.
It's like the people that complained for Rings of Power. It breaks the canon. I will admit it breaks the canon. I'm like, even I say that as a token, and I'm a Tolkien fan and a Lord of the Rings fan and Hobbit fan and stuff. But I like Rings of Power because it's got the story's decent. Like the story they're telling is decent, and generally it's really well produced. You know what I mean? I need to watch season 2 because I haven't got around to it. I've not been, but like generally, like the effects and stuff are really really good. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I mean, I watched the first series. I've got to tell you, I'm probably not. I mean, I'm not. I watched a couple of episodes of season 2. I kind of had my fill of that for now, of all of it, just in general. In movie and TV wise, not that it was good, bad, or indifferent.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say I don't know how that show didn't get awards for the Mount Doom changeover, because that was fucking awesome. That was one of them. I watched that scene multiple times. One of the best bits of CGI I've seen, or special effects I've seen in a long time. Just great shot.
Oh yeah, but you know what I mean though. Like in regards to it of sorry, excuse me. Like you know what I mean, like stuff like that. I'm like, but it's people that were claiming, "Oh my god, there's a black dwarf," and "Oh my god, there's a black elf," and "Oh my god, elves should all be white or all should be," and my brain was like, the word fair doesn't mean white. The word fair. Fair literally means attractive, you mong. That's what my brain goes. It's like, these words you're using to describe elves were all fair or like this. I'm like, that doesn't describe the colour of their skin. Fair is nothing to do with the colour of someone's skin.
Yeah,
fair is a colour.
It's just such a boring argument.
I know.
Point.
It's just I've never understood it, because I'm like, to me, as you know from our D&D campaign, literally, which race in our D&D campaign is the race that is the guys that are all about, like, have the ones that are basically driving force behind technological advancement in my fantasy universe, in the the campaign that we're playing.
I can't remember. You're heavily racist in that campaign.
I'm not. Fuck off, you twat. Am I racist? Not heavily racist in that campaign. It is the orcs in that campaign that are the intelligent, technologically advanced race. They're the guys that they're the race that basically, they're not tribal. They very much live in cities. They're the guys that are developing, have developed electricity. They're developing basic rifle, magic lock blunderbusses and stuff. They combine magic and technology together a lot. Like, their kingdom is very much the most advanced kingdom on the planet, which is the complete opposite of, for example, the elves in that one, where the elves are very much small, like tribe-like, and very much, there's two types of elves. There's elves raised in the cities who are accustomed to city life. They fit in with everyone, and there's elves that are raised in the elven enclaves, which are essentially, if you were to put them in fantasy race terms, in a standard fantasy, a generic fantasy world, would be the orcs of that world. You know what I mean? These people that do shit that no one else understands why they're doing it. But as I say, in regards to this current with that campaign, that's like the dwarves are the mages of that world. Like the College of Mages in that world was founded by dwarves, because their whole kingdom is built on magic. They don't live underground like normal dwarves either. They live on like the surface, like in massive, not in floating cities, but in just like cities that basically have magical controlled golems, and generally have magic being used to supplement a lot of their lifestyle. Like, it's the whole point of that universe. I was like, how can I change how races are normally perceived? Or it was more like, what fits my vision? But apparently, if my world would be a woke world to the weirdos. Because
that's true. I think most worlds would be, unless they're in charge. But yeah, I just don't understand.
I don't get it. It's a thing I've slowly stopped understanding it in this day and age.
But especially in a custom character build,
I know.
Why complain about an option you're not going to use?
I know. That's the bit I don't get about the. I can see with it kind of the complaint about Quinari characters, that your Quinari character in the new game looks a little bit like they don't look as stoic or as stuff as the old one, but I have a feeling that might be because that's what the devs were just showing off. We're just showing off all the pretty options because that's what devs usually do. If you know what I mean?
Yeah. But also, you've got to think. I would argue though that the Quinari characters were technically new in the last game.
Yeah, they were only in they've been in every game, but you've only been able to play as Quinari as of Inquisition. The first game you could play as all three. I think the other reason why I dislike Dragon Age 2 as much as loads of people love Dragon Age 2 is I dislike that I was stuck playing as a human for Dragon Age 2. And I don't mind playing as a human, but the thing about Dragon Age 1 Origins and Dragon Age 3 was that you got kind of a slightly different story depending on which race you picked. Like, there were certain lines that were different depending on your race. You know what I mean? Yeah,
but what I mean is that in the first two games at least, they were still this mysterious set off on another island. And even in the third one, when you can actually play as one, even then the ones you meet are
still mysterious, and you only get one Quinari companion, and then you meet this other group of Quinari that you only meet for about I think 1 or 2 missions basically. You don't.
Well, no, because in the third one, there's actually the ones that crash land, and there's that small community of them.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm about. That's you only meet them for like 1 or 2 missions because they're only in like a sort of small set of side missions. But then you get the guy that's all the time. And then you got the guy that's the mercenary dude that you recruit him, but even most of his party isn't Qunari. They're all mostly humans. It's just he's the only Qunari leading the band of mercenaries. That's what I mean. Like, there's not very many Qunari characters in 3. That's like
my point being, if they are around today, in this game, chances are that means that they probably the ones that are still on that landmass have probably bred with humans. So their look would be a little bit.
The third game is set. Brutal. The third game isn't set in Thedas anymore. It's set on the other continent, I believe. It's set in Tevinter. So you know how the first one was kind of like was all over Thedas. The second game was you got a little glimpse of one of the other continents, you know, in the form of the city.
Yeah.
And then the third game was you got Thedas and then, you know, or Orlys, a little bit of Orlys. You got to see what Orlysian culture's like. Apparently this one is Tevinter. We're finally getting to see what Tevinter's culture properly is like, which is kind of interesting if you ask me. I would love to see Tevinter because I'm not going to lie, but being able to see sort of that's the other thing that people kind of unrealistic diversity, and I'm sat there going, we're going to a whole freaking new continent. And I'm pretty sure in the first 2 games I could play as a black elf or an Asian elf. That's what made me laugh. Is the complaint because they went, they've gone woke because they put an Asian elf in it, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's just.
It doesn't make sense because I'm like, Dragon Age has always had a kind of somewhat diverse cast of characters anyway. It's kind of been the whole point. It's BioWare's whole thing.
That first game, 100%. Second game, not so much. Like I said, I enjoyed that for different reasons.
I've played the second game. I've enjoyed the story. I don't enjoy it as much as 1 or 3 but that's probably because to me the second game's main limiting factor to me is that you don't get to see how your character in that, like, you know, where it's set would interact with all these things as any of the other races. Whereas in the, you know, previous game and the third game, you get like these slightly different reactions depending on what your character's origin is and stuff.
Yeah. I see now. I mean, this is something we're never going to find out, but I wonder. So when in the early days of the second game being released, there was a lot of a big deal about actually. Your character, your original character, is going to be sent over. It's a follow-up. This story is a follow-up, and I think, at least to some extent, because they even started up. I don't know if you remember, if you went online, if you didn't have a saved file, or if you wanted to, or your saved file you could transfer over, or you didn't have the original, you played it on the PC and not the Xbox. There was this website you could go to. What you do is you put in your I'll tell the rest of it. You put in your game username account for the Xbox, and all the major choices you would then pick. It would give you this big story narrative, and then when you loaded in the second game, that history would be loaded onto your game.
Yeah, so they did it with the first game as well. They did it with the third one as well. Yeah. The third one had the same. They did it. Brought it back for the third game. Yeah. I believe they've also said they possibly may bring it back. I believe they were going to bring it back from the fourth game, but because it's been so long, and we've jumped like that many consoles between it.
Multiple consoles, yeah.
They've not been able. They weren't able to do it, but which is the only problem with the last game. It was kind of sad, but. I think that's why they deliberately set this one like 10 or so years after they've deliberately done a massive time jump so they can kind of get around it and go, yeah, sorry, we can't do much else. We can't.
It was a nice idea in sort of keeping a constant narrative going through your game.
Oh yeah.
Although unfortunately never really amounted to anything. It's not like
it did in 3. It did amount to some stuff in 3, because in 3 you got to meet Hawk and you got to meet the hero for Eldon.
Well, here's the thing: you got to meet in the second one. You also, one thing that you did get to do this was if your save files were on the same Xbox and you loaded your save file up. Your all your character choices and your character design would go into your second game, and originally what everyone assumed was you get to play your second. If you wanted to carry the story on as your player, you could. No, what it meant was if you had done all that, you got a specific special mission in which you met up with Alistair and your original character, have a conversation, and then you get to do an extra mission.
It was a bit sad, but I did.
If you also had Shale unlocked in the original game and you did it that way, you also then got to meet Shale in the future as your character as Hawk, which was kind of cool.
Oh yeah, well I liked that in 3 you got to meet Hawk and have a conversation with Hawk about the stuff that Hawk did, and you got to meet the hero, Ferelden a little bit and I like that the only way you meet the hero. I like, if I remember correctly, the only way you actually meet the hero Ferelden is if you befriend Liliana. And I love the fact that they kept that tie of, because Liliana's in the third game. She's one of your, your characters. One of your characters you get in the game. She's not a companion, but she's one of your crew. And I like that it also, because of my save in the first game, where the character my hero Ferelden, romance in the end was Liliana, because that was the character I got. I actually genuinely like this character, and that's the funny bit is it's because of the way she starts. She's kind of like, even though Liliana is to me like you played Baldur's Gate 3, yeah?
Yeah.
She is like Lae'zel to me, in the sense of the start of the game, that character is a little bit annoying. I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to say she isn't. She's a little bit annoying. Right? But as you go through the story and you learn more about the character and you start to learn their backstory, you start to realise why they're a little bit annoying. And you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, she's got a great backstory and history.
Oh yeah. This one, I'll do this. But yeah, she's got a great backstory and a great history. And it's like, that's the point, though. It's like, yeah, this is really fun, and it's like, it's one of those things that Liliana is legitimately one of those characters that she's one of those characters that grows in you, but so does Lae'zel. Lae'zel's like whole thing is she's been raised from birth, she's been indoctrinated into following the creed of the Gith and everything, and Vilakith is the true ruler of the Gith and everything, you know what I mean? And I think that's what made me in that game it's the thing that made me it's the bit that in that game made me think you will like bond with Lae'zel in that game as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, oh, okay, so she's quite literally, Lae'zel is quite literally it's just based like Liliana. She starts off kind of annoying, but once you get to know the character and you get to go through the romance with them, it's like, oh, this character's kind of fun to romance. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and it's one of those things about these games that I was like, oh, this is brilliant.
Like I say, I completely agree. I mean, I was a massive fan of Dragon Age 1 and 2. The third one, we've had this discussion before. I got, every time I tried to play it, I ended up just getting more and more confounded in the fact that it was neither one thing nor the other. It didn't know whether or not it wanted to be Dragon Age game or if it wanted to be Skyrim, and
I know.
It never held me. It never held my fancy.
I think my main issue with the third game is my main issue with the third game is that there does come a point in the third game where you kind of get this you get the feeling that you're just doing fetch quests from an MMO.
Yeah.
And it's personally, I think it's because it was BioWare's first experiment with an open world game. Because Andromeda, people hate on Andromeda, but I love Andromeda. Andromeda was so fun. And I think it's because Andromeda fixed that by not making the fetch quest stuff be like a main story quest or be like a side quest. It was just, there's collectibles, you can go collect them if you want. You can ignore them if you don't want to do these fetch quests. rather than giving them a quest reward and stuff for doing them. You know what I mean? So you're like, I want the experience. It's just there, and instead, all the side quests in that game were like a bit more like Mass Effect style side games. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where they were all about basically being, they're actually not integral to the story, but they help the overall story when you do them because you get like little extra dialogue in certain scenes.
Dialogue and certain scenes, it helped build. They're usually
it was world building. The thing that a criminally underrated thing of Andromeda is, for me, is that Andromeda didn't get the DLC that it was supposed to get.
No.
And that saddens me because honestly,
I've got a great game.
It's an underrated game, like legitimately underrated.
It's one of the things. I mean, one of the main things that annoys me about what everyone was saying about that game, and I guess this was just mine. I got the game day of release. I got it day of release, and other than the one or two minor glitches that you get in these games, that you kind of expect to get in these games, even later on.
Yeah.
Never had a problem. My game played through pretty damn fine. Not too good if you looked, but yeah, like I say, you live with that. I didn't see any of this game breaking stuff that everyone else was having.
I didn't. I think everyone can, but I played it on PC on an SSD, so I was loading really fast. All I feel that
I was on a console.
Yeah,
I was on a console.
I feel like some of the stuff with that game was blown out of proportion, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a lot of, for some reason, there was a. I think there was a large number of fans that got rather annoyed that
we weren't continuing. This wasn't Shepard's story, and I'm like, but he died in the last game. It's the whole point of Mass Effect 3 was this is the end of Shepard's story. That's kind of the point of that game.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem is that this game really was, to its extent, an updated version of Mass Effect 1, including with the buggy and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And that did knock a lot of people. They wanted something a bit more different, a bit more richer. And I will say there was some limitations on the game, story-wise, with that first one. But these were all things that you was expecting time for this stuff to be added on anyway. And because there was so much hate so fast, they shut everything down on the spot.
And it's sad.
It got me hungry to give them more money for more story. And they would have made a lot more money if they had bolted straight away. It was not as bad as a Concord situation. They could have easily carried that game on for a while. And there's no reason to cancel the sequel at all.
No. I was at the end, like the end credit where you get, the Quarrying arc finally shows up and you get the message for it, and I was like, oh, I was so excited for if we got a DLC for this when I first played it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we never got that because people were just shitting on the game, and I'm like, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't as don't get me wrong, nowhere near as good as Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 2 or 3 or overall like 1. But it was also it was also the start of a new story.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue 1 was not a massively good, enjoyable game to play until it got the major fixes in the remake.
I don't mean gameplay wise for 1. I mean the story.
Yeah.
Because 1 story is, I can't fault 1 story. I can fault 1's gameplay, but I can't fault its story, if you know what I mean. But also, the thing I'll say about 1's story, if you know what I mean, what I'll say. What I will say about 1's story though is, the thing about it is, 1's story is good. The reason 1's gameplay is bad is because it was BioWare's first ever, foray into that genre. Like, making a third-person shooter. It was their first, they'd never made a shooter game before, so I'm like, I couldn't expect them to be amazing, but it was a lot worse than 1's.
Shooting stuff wasn't really my biggest problem. The one thing that I think should have been removed very early on because they knew they couldn't patch it or fix it was the whole buggy stuff. This was one of the reasons why one of the things that Andromeda did get right, and people were actually jokingly happy about, was the fact that you could drive the buggy around 2 rocks without it exploding, and the fact that every single mission wasn't then attached to the exploding buggy. So, I mean, that was what got me. I was very stressed with the buggy.
The buggy never annoyed me in the first game.
Oh man, you're so lucky. It's me and the rest of the community that was driven insane by how brittle.
Was it? Because most of the community that I ever see always says bring back the Mako. It's kind of what the joke is, bring back the Mako. We wanted more Mako.
No one wanted that thing back. It just blew every time. Anyway, yeah.
But yeah.
A great set of games in the end. I like saying it's very sad that it's now considered a dead franchise.
Well, we're getting a 4th game.
Are we really?
Mass Effect 4 has been announced for like the last 5 years.
Oh, then I just assumed shovelware at that point.
No, it's just because it's the thing is, BioWare's even said we're not going to focus on it until Veilguard is out. They want to. They're trying to not take away from Veilguard like at all, which which is a smart thing in my opinion. Because why would you focus? If you've got a new game coming out, right? If you've got that's coming out in a few weeks, why the hell would you start showing stuff off for your other game? You know what I mean?
Yeah, then you shouldn't mention that you're doing anything at all with it and wait.
They showed off a teaser trailer which was Liara on an ice planet getting off of a ship, so we know Liara's back in it. But we also know it's apparently they've released another teaser that, by the way, one of the not teaser, but one of the things they've shown off for it or released of it has guess what's in it in like a little concept trailer they released.
What's that?
Geth.
So it's going to depend on what canon ending they go for. If they just gone for a whole different ending.
I think they went for the Destroy ending, but I think what they're doing is, but there's Geth in it. But there's not only Geth. Guess who else is in the little teaser images that we've seen?
Who?
Angara.
Okay.
Which is kind of and we'd heard in like the initial teaser trailer had like lines including the Quarian Ark is away and the Turian Ark is away and we've got signals from the Andromeda Galaxy. So it's like it sounds like what they're probably doing is, we're going to continue. They're continuing, not Shepard's story, but they're continuing the story from onwards from Mass Effect, 3, the ending of it.
Yeah.
But we're getting something new. But a lot of people are saying, "Oh no, it means Shepard's alive. Oh, it means that Shepard survived." Well, Shepard technically in one ending does survive.
I mean, but technically, isn't the Shepard you've got from the second one onwards canonically anyway a clone?
Yeah. No, as in
I mean,
Shepard that we got technically from Game 2 onwards isn't a clone. He's Shepard, just resurrected. They literally went and invented whole technology to bring someone back from the fucking dead just for one person. Not even a kid joke. That is actually, if you read the whole thing from Mass Effect 2, like in game, they straight up created technology to regenerate the Shepard's corpse back to life. But they did make a clone of Shepard because you meet the clone of Shepard in the Citadel DLC.
Yeah.
And I love that DLC because it's it's hilarious because you have Shepard having an existential crisis during the DLC because the other Shepard goes, "I should go," and you know how Shepard says it. You know how Shepard says it so badly, so nonchalant, like they're so bored, and Shepard's like, Shepard starts having a crisis of going, "I don't sound like that, do I? I sound much cooler, don't I?" I'm like, I should go, or I should go. It's just, whichever companion you've got with you is like, Shepard, give it a rest.
It's you. No,
it's fun that they all make fun of Shepard because it's like Shepard's the clone sounds as bad as Shepard does, and when Shepard speaks at certain times, It's just like it's so funny.
Weirdly enough, similar sort of thing, but, on another franchise that got killed by a game that weren't the worst in the world, but just wasn't what it should have been. Saints Row.
Saints Row. The last Saints Row game is awesome. I played it.
I haven't actually played it.
Well, if you had a good enough PC, I'd give it you for free because I have it for a spare copy.
No. I'm a console guy, but no. So I know I'm a big fan of Saints Row games. I've had them all since the first one. I didn't get the Mayhem game, and I didn't get the new Saints Row game. Now the main reason I've got friends that have played it, and they're like, it's not like the reason you like playing the Saints Row games. And I've seen some of the videos of it. Now it's not to say that it's not good or whatever. Like I say, I haven't played it, but that got a bad reception, and it killed the franchise off. They didn't make it. There was meant to be a second one. They didn't make it. But in the original set of games before that remake, because that one is a remake, there is actually a scene in which your character, now you can have loaded your character up through all of these things, and your character gets caught in the simulation, and at some point you fight not only the original character from the first game, which isn't you, it's someone else, but you then fight the default character, which is you, technically, from the second game onwards. And I was like, who the fuck is this chump? I was like, technically that's you, that's just the default you. What do you mean the default me? But it's hard to explain.
It's hard to
and then you beat him up, and then the one from the third game comes and is like, well, who's this chump? He's like, the second default you? Who's the default me?
What should we take a default? I know it's to be fair, having played the newer Saints Row, yeah. I spent a good 3 days playing that game and just playing through missions and stuff. It genuinely, after about when you start getting to the bit where the gang starts becoming the Saints and renames themselves the Saints and stuff, it is just genuinely just a bit more of a grounded Saints Row, but it is still got the same signature, super over the top, silly shenanigans happening throughout the game. There's literally a mission where you have to jump, like you're on a car, firing a gun at a train, and then you jump off the car onto the fucking train because I need to now go deal with all these bad guys on the train.
Yeah.
It's full on signature Saints Row. I think the issue with that game that it got so much hate just because, oh my god, they've gone woke. It was actually even the gone woke, but then I'm like, because they basically, rather than every other Saints Row where the character they used as default for the boss was the male boss. In the other games they did in the second and that game they chose a female character was the default version, but I'm like. People going, oh, they've gone woke. Look, you've got to play as a female. They've got female protagonists and all this, and I'm like, dude, you can literally. I was like, if you play it, it's character customization.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's it. But here's the thing: so the main complaint I heard around people was it was now too much of a move towards too much of being like Grand Theft Auto. A little bit more their humour, their seriousness in playing.
No, there was definitely the three main, the full gangs and shit that you were fighting, like the three main gangs.
Yeah.
All the bad guys. There was no way it was that because one of them is literally.
No, I'm not saying
idols.
I'm not saying it was exactly that. They were saying it moving towards that sort of a thing, and the videos I had seen of it, it kind of looked that kind of way. Not saying it is, but with me, the way the games had progressed. The original set of games have progressed where you had gone to the future and then you were basically superheroes in the simulation.
Oh yeah, and then Johnny went to hell.
and then Johnny went to hell. I mean, I think just going back to being in a car or a helicopter shooting a gun.
Oh, I know. It was a downside, but they still had in that game. There was a lot of shit that you could still technically do from. The superhero game, they did actually manage to put a bunch of the shit in the game from that it's just you don't start with that stuff and you have to unlock it, but you still get some of the ridiculous abilities, like the.
Oh,
first
yeah, I mean, you've got the ridiculous stuff.
But all they did was they changed like like the gliding ability was a wingsuit.
Yeah.
That's all they really did. They just changed it so it's a bit more fit the theme, but they kept a lot of that stuff.
You did have kind of weird extra shit in the first 2 games and the first 3 games before all of that. Anyway, it was just you had to unlock it with the extra points and experiences.
Oh yeah. I think the other issue is that a lot of people forget is that Saints Row 4 kind of put the franchise in a corner of where the fuck do we go from here, because we've kind of killed the Earth, we're stuck in an alien spaceship, and we've kind of got what do we do if we were for a storyline for the game.
Now this is where I think it was genius, because they could have done one of 2 things. Because one, they'd already sent Johnny Gat to hell. Well, Saints Row try and take on either hell or some other fucking hell-like dimension or some other dimension. Would have been freaking awesome. Or because at the end of that game, Johnny Gat and the group do get themselves into a position. Other than play the game, it's fun.
I know. I've played all of the Saints Row games. Saints Row 4 is actually installed on this PC at the minute because, I love going back and playing it.
I'm talking to anyone who's listening.
Well, that's probably no one.
And the thing is, how funny would the next Saints Row game be? Being heaven and hell decided to rebuild Earth in some manner, but the Saints Row game won a piece. And your job is to do some sort of gangster shit in between heaven and hell or on Earth itself. I would love it. And then you get to pick which side you want at the end. Are you going to be the Saints Row gang with the wings on the back, or the Saints Row gang with the devil's wings on your back? You know, it'll be quite fun. And then the Earth is reset, but they got superpowers in the spaceship.
You got some serious range on that old Spidey sense, kid. Or he got my text.
Or set it on Mars.
Oh yeah, there's stuff they can do, but Violation also doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Agents of Mayhem and Saints Row both they basically killed the company. That's the sad bit. That's the sad bit. They killed the company, but unfortunately, I will agree that the new Saints Row, I love it. I'll agree that its mistake was going back to a bit more of a mundane thing when after having the ridiculousness. But it's not like it's like you say, it's like Andromeda. It's not a bad game. It's not actually that bad of a game as people made it out to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it killed the franchise because it wasn't what people were kind of wanting at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, question:
What you know?
Shall I go get Venom with Venom?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna get Venom with Venom because it's funnier. Because I've already finished all like the DLC and stuff, and so I've got all the characters. Meaning, I have the character that I'm not supposed to be able to unlock yet.
Which is fun. There should be extra dialogue and shit like that, I think. Where you've got different realities.
Through Limbo.
Weird enough, it is strange how certain franchises or certain companies get killed in franchises and how they have to change afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, we've mentioned it before, Final Fantasy and Squaresoft.
They got killed.
Square in it.
Yep.
Final Fantasy killed it.
I know. Sure, it was in killed.
Once again, I think that's very sad. Because
it's not a bad film. It's just I can't look at the characters in that film that often.
His thing. I think it is. The problem is it's an art piece, and it's an art piece solely for fans of those type of games, JRPG games, because it is one massive JRPG story and VMF, and so it's yeah. The big problem with they got hair right before anyone else did. They got cloth right before anyone else did. They got the movement of skin and pores right before anyone else did. All in the same movie. but they couldn't make it look like those people were really walking down the corridor. Um, and even like they were so proud of everything they could do. If you had the DVD, hidden away on there was a shot-for-shot remake of Thriller with the characters from Final Fantasy Spirits Within.
I know. I have watched it. I have watched it.
Yeah,
I have the
but
DVD.
once again, they might as well just. All of it's great except for their feet on the floor, because it still looks like they're on ice.
Well, it's not just that. It's also their face as well has that uncanny. The eyes, because the eyes look dead. They have that uncanny valley thing. It's the same with Final Fantasy VII. Kind of to a lesser extent, Advent Children.
Yeah,
like
Advent Children managed to escape it slightly, I would argue, but
yeah,
it wasn't as technically technologically as advanced as what Spirits Within was. Ironically, and weirdly enough, it is because that problem with the Uncanny Valley there. I mean, I watched it again recently, and it is still beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing with it, I don't know if it's now because over the years we've had a lot more time to customize ourselves to that sort of stuff, especially with face morphing and face mapping stuff we've seen a lot more of, to age characters and to change their features entirely. It doesn't look as bad as I remember.
Who's going to win, Venom or Anti-Venom?
Anti-Venom should technically win.
Because as you can see, my Venom is Anti-Venom.
So yeah, I'd say that the Uncanny Valley kind of gets escaped slightly more now with that. I mean,
it does, but people got it when they saw Peter Cushing, when we saw the Peter Cushing one in thingy, and I don't blame them because it's things like that. It's because it's the thing of looks real, but isn't, if that makes sense. It's that it kind of looks a little bit real, which is kind of a bit.
Yeah. But like I said, I think as a group of people, our eyes are more attuning to it. That sort of is now making it more.
The question is, right? This is the the question is right. Why do we do it? Sorry, why do we get it? That's the actual question behind it. Is that scientists still need to try to find the answer because. Because every person on Earth has the same defensive reaction to it when you get Uncanny Valley. It is actually a species-wide thing, like our entire species has it. Yes. And it's a defense mechanism. And what are defense mechanisms evolved for?
Well, I mean, yes, there's definitely a reason for it. And the thing is that if you actually look back through sort of folklore of peoples, a particular type of character does appear kind of regularly, which would be a doppelganger.
Mm-hmm. Or shapeshifters, skinwalkers.
Isn't you?
Yep.
Yeah. So something, and also you got. I mean, you mentioned it. So looking not quite human is, or at least dead, what we class as dead behind the eyes, is a freaky thing anyway.
Oh yeah.
But, is it called pareidolia, where we see the human image or the human face in things anyway by pattern? So when you have your thing is recognising a face, but something about that face isn't quite right, it's almost the flip version of seeing a face in a pattern that isn't there, or in the dark that isn't there. Now you're seeing something wrong with a face that kind of shouldn't be, but it's because your eye notices something weird that the rest of your brain doesn't. If your brain notices something the rest of your eye doesn't.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things though. In regards to it's like it's just a. Oh yeah. But it's just one of those lovely things that we have as humans are like. Why do we get this? Probably because we experienced this at one point in our life. Something like this happened. Or we have the whole thing of doppelgangers as a thing that we, for some reason, is in it. Almost every folklore has one, but then also every folklore also has some form of a dragon. They're two things that are very much why.
Well, and the thing is, like, and there are the dragon thing is interesting because you could argue that multiple different of these groups over the years have found dinosaur fossils or
It's explanations for things that they don't understand. It's a lot of it is human, that we need to find an explanation for things we don't understand.
And for the majority of that, once again, I will agree. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And Arkham's Razor, it's what
it's also some of it was also for possibly stories of this warrior that's like of a warrior that got that beat something or lost to someone or something that's like not that scary, and it's like out of embarrassment made up this story about a dragon or some big beast, if you know what I mean.
100%.
Fair. I'm saving my face.
But here's the bit that gets me, that I do find quite funny. Nearly all of these representations, all these different cultures, long before they were connected, I think it's nearly all of them. I think it's very rarely you see that otherwise. They all have 6 major appendages.
Yep.
Including a tail. No creature on Earth that complex has that. So where the heck does that come from? Who what? Because they didn't. No one's dug that up.
Nope.
So yeah, I find that incredibly strange. As to why people would do that. To some extent, I do believe that I am much of a believer of, especially in things like cave paintings, where you see cave paintings of dinosaurs or big monsters, and you think that those people have not created that image at a whim. There is a reason. Back then, it was really important to only put down the things that were important, because the resources to actually draw on a wall was hard work. You weren't just picking up a Sharpie. So, yeah, why the fuck would you then spend time drawing 3 dinosaurs if you've only just seen the skeleton of one and it's done nothing to you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's like my thing with the new Tomb Raider show that came out. That last episode, as we talked about last time, the fact that after she's got on the 2 guns in that show, that last episode, straight up, like, yep, we've got last episode, she's using the guns to kill some animals and do some stuff, and then she's like, we're going through this, and then we have the whole mystical side of things with, the goddess that created the artifact in the first place, and everything. And then, as her and Jonah are leaving, we get the whole scene of something rumbling towards them through, the trees, and then you hear the T-Rex roar from the gate from the first game, and you're like, and then you see her fight a T-Rex, and I'm like, yep, I like this Lost Land stuff, because to be fair, as the scariest thing we remember, the scariest fact we know is that we know more about more about the stars above than we do the oceans below.
Yeah, I mean, we hardly know anything about the oceans at very odd choice. I mean, one of the fun things I do find is that for years, the idea of a giant squid taking out all these big ships was a laugh, a joke, a fairy tale.
Deep sea gigantism.
Then you start seeing fishermen bringing up bigger and bigger octopi. Still not anywhere near these massive giant kraken things that were always reported.
but then all of a sudden you get a whale that's being a blue whale. I think it's a comment of a blue whale or sperm whale that's been hunted, and they call it. They found a beak in the side of it where something has taken a chunk out of the side of it in battle, and this thing is scarred to fuck. And the beak that they then work out on the size of the creature would have been huge if it's one of these octopus. Like absolutely mental, and it's preying on a sperm whale.
Yep.
So it's got to be huge. So why would these things not be attacking ships back in the day? I mean, Jiminy Crickets.
I don't know. Giant. Well, it's the thing. Deep sea gigantism is a thing in the oceans.
Yeah.
It's like. Okay. It's like I need to.
Well, there's just certain things you're never gonna.
We're never going to understand.
I know, there's a great Mitchell and Webb sound sketch, which is their radio show. And the joke of that is that they finally decided to do it, and they drained Loch Ness, and they did find they found a lone singular monster that's probably been there for about 300,000-400,000 years. It was a unique monster, but unfortunately, draining of the lake killed it. So yes, there is now no more Loch Ness monster. Which is kind of what's going to happen with it. The only way to fully find out whether these things exist is basically go on a hunt for them. Which then will ultimately just end up killing them in some manner.
Peter's just getting thrown around by Venom, as usual. Poor Peter.
Huge one.
It's not that fault that Venom and Anti-Venom is just sat there being currently webbed up by Venom. Because, I haven't broken the game with the fact that I am fighting Venom with Venom.
And Venom. With enough Venom. Which is basically what we're going to end up seeing in the new Venom film.
Arsenic, lead, zinc, and silver. 7th grade trip to the Liberty Bell.
Yep, that's another thing we've got to look forward to in the coming weeks.
What?
Venom's Last Dance.
Oh yeah, when is it actually out? I've forgotten.
Sometime next month. Not about 2 weeks.
Throw 2 guns, that's right. Yeah, because I want to watch it. It'll be fun to watch. Don't care that it might not be anywhere near as good.
To be fair, the quality of the Venom films has been going downhill since the first one. I love Carnage. I love Woody Harrelson. I love the idea of Woody.
That
Harrelson.
film should have been R-rated. I'm sorry. Venom
Carnage.
2 should have been R-rated.
It should have been R-rated, and they should have respected the damn character, not whatever story they wanted to write. The fact that Cletus Cassidy and Carnage or Carnage, doesn't matter, had any kind of care or restraint or anything because the woman he loved was in mild danger.
And as much as
the bollocks to that character.
And even though in the comics currently those two are a couple, like that's the funny part. They are a couple in the comics, which cool. But I'm sorry, but it was just
But do you know what he does? He leaves her
multiple times.
Multiple times in the middle of a fight when it's going wrong. He will just go, "Well, you handle this, I'm on." In fact, there's a great.
Well, he does it in the Deadpool versus Carnage comic. He basically leaves her, and then Deadpool uses a trick to make him kill her during the comic.
Yeah. Well, even in coming for Spider-Man, I think it might have been Spider-Man versus Carnage, or Venom versus Carnage. where Carnage is hanging out with her and one of the Spider-Man doppelgangers from around that story time. There was these things that they looked like Spider-Man, but they were bugs and they fired out barbed wire, webbing. They were crazy. It was a whole thing in the Spider-Man story here, I think. But yeah, they were all hanging out, fighting and shit. But yeah, the fight kicked off. She screamed, which then caused a problem for Carnage. And Carnage was, "You ever do that again, I'll kill you. Ever do that near me again, I'll kill you." And then left her in the middle of the fight. And that's exactly what it should have been like.
Oh yeah.
Because even then, Cletus was like, "He's right. You hurt us. You do that again, we kill you." There was nothing about love. They were killers. But then again, if they had done it more like Natural Born Killers, where they were the ride and die, no matter what, then that would be great. But that's not how that film was playing out.
No. It's the issue with it. The issue with it is that, but it's the curse of comic book movies.
It is true. It is true. There's very little they could do because they were trying to make money, and they had to. At that point in time, it was a big risk to go R-rated on a comic book movie. Now it's not looking.
Well, no,
like
it wasn't.
that.
Remember, it came out after both Deadpool movies, and both of those, and the first one was somewhat, and the Logan movie. And I'm sorry, but R-rated movies. They're not Logan.
Logan movies were R-rated. Actually, Logan was R-rated.
Yeah.
But neither the first Deadpools were R-rated.
No, but it came out after like R-rated movies were basically starting to make bank. That's the problem. They were still thinking in that point where an R-rated movie's not going to sell well, but it's like it will if you give it like what Logan did and actually give it a good story and a good.
Yeah, no, I can understand why they didn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. It should have been. I can understand why they didn't. I think they could have heavily gone in more. I mean, like I say, his thing, violence-wise, you can get away with a lot in America for a 50. I mean, we saw that in the Deadpool film.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason that got an R rating in America is because of the language. In fact, I didn't realise until the multiple rewatchings of it that. So, as we discussed before, that film does get it gets its R rating very early on in that film because of the multiple fucks that are used. But what I didn't realise until the rewatching, or at least I don't think I realised, is that he does use a cunty at one point, which is 100% R rating out the back. No matter what else they did in that film, they put a cunty in there. That's it. Boom, R rating.
Oh, and is that? Oh yeah, because that's one of the words that Americans have a problem with.
100%.
It's weird, which I find funny because in England and in Australia and most of the countries that English is like a first language, it's not really one of those words that we care about.
Oh, I mean, it is. So to some people here, it is very harsh. There are certain people that you say it and you see them shutting up. Oh, really? But it is a word you do hear regularly.
Whoops, Mac.
I mean, it's one of the things that I was saying to my other half because she's American. Like, well, it's going to be one of those words that I'm going to have to be careful of because it comes out just as a word, as an expression. But yeah, it is hard. Is a harsh word.
Oh yeah.
But when she was here, the fact that she heard it multiple times just off of a couple, she went, "Are those
can't believe they're saying that, even if they are having an argument. I think they're friends.
Yeah, it's kind of what we say. It's a kind of a British thing to call your friends a cunt. It's just like it's kind of it's one of those words that we use without like because it's a word we're kind of desensitized to a little bit, probably because we're just like because it's just one of those words that we just don't have we don't have the same aversion. It's the same in like Australia. Australia comes up with worse things than that. They have all sorts of worse insults, but it's a thing of. We kind of don't have this kind of.
I mean, the Australians are backwards in so many ways, but they did give me a word and a celebration day.
Excuse me.
That helped us with a friend very, very much. So I can't remember what the day is, the actual date, but it's called Ranga Day.
Yeah.
And on Ranga Day, a certain group of people are exempt from having the piss taken out of them. But the rest of the time it's fair game. And Ranga is a Australian term for ginger. And
Look, we need protection. Well, it's not our fault we were born with red hair.
Well, my friend Stu here, he is afflicted with not having a soul. And
I don't have a soul. Neither does your friend.
And so when I showed him this, and he was like, "Yeah, on Ranga Day, I was like, take this out." He was like, "Oh, what day is that?" I was like, "I told him, just remember one day you're not allowed to take this out." And other than that, he's known as Ranga now. If he was Irish, orangutan.
Orangutan. Why specifically use Irish?
Well, because orangutan.
Oh god damn it! But yeah, it is. In England, we are very much a country of people that just get on with it. Where keep calm, carry on. Isn't actually just a saying; it's actually a fucking thing we do because we just don't care anymore. I think one of those countries as well where I'm going to say something that's probably going to anger anyone who ever watched this is Americans probably going to get really mad at me because I'm going to mention a certain event that happened on the 9th of September 2001 where
was that you mean the day that the evidence to the McDonald's monopoly fraud scandal was destroyed?
Yes.
I know some other stuff happened around that to hide that fact, but that was the one big thing that happened.
Yeah, that was the big thing that happened that day. But, that certain event that happened on that day, that Americans get, I understand a lot of people lost their lives in those days, but same thing, a lot of people lost lives in London bombings and all the other events that happened in England. But it's a very different culture, whereas we just make fun of, like, a lot of the horrible shit that has happened in our country. We kind of just laugh at it nowadays after it's after the fact.
Yes.
Even though because it's a weird thing with us.
It is known. Well, it's known as the Blitz spirit, and it is one thing that very few bigger countries have actually gone through, in which you've had to hide in the cellars and bomb shelters and train stations of your city because you're having bombs rained down on you, especially as a country as old as what we are and how relatively recent that is in our history. So there was a Battle Britain sort of spirit. Once it was finished, you went outside and your house was bombed, but you were dusting the bricks off of your pavement because you didn't want the neighbours to think you were dirty. It was stuff like that.
Your house was bombed, but you're alright. You can rebuild the house.
Yeah, just make sure your bins were out and they were in the right place on the street so your neighbours didn't look at you as if you were a lazy fuck.
Exactly. Keep calm, carry on.
You might not have a roof, but make sure your curtains weren't dusted. So there is all of that, and so we did have a very macabre sense of humour.
KBO, of course.
And a lot of what our humour is, especially to the rest of the world, does I personally think comes from
a lot of what happened in the Second World War, because like our sarcasm, for example, which is something that
that we learned from a young age. We learned sarcasm.
You've got to think. So, one of the biggest secrets, especially in London,
that horrible place.
Which is a countrywide secret, was the fact that we had the BT Tower sitting in the centre of London, covered in radar and satellites and everything, just standing. It was one of the biggest godsends we had in London during the Second World War. But it was top secret, and everyone in London knew it was top secret. So, like, signs were hidden and everything, but you can't hide a massive building. But if anyone asks, even this went on into the 80s, until it was actually properly declassified. And everyone knew it was the BT Tower. But if you're, do you know where such and such is? No. What, the big building? Big building with BT on it? Never seen it, bro. Never seen it.
No, I don't know what you're on about, mate.
Yeah, you'd be leaning up next to it, right? The top of it is spinning, because it's got a spinning cafe in it, and you're like, I ain't fucking seen it, bro. And so part of that is like, mind your business. If you don't know, we don't know. And that sort of easily leads into our sarcasm, and battle hard. But what happened there though on 9/11 was crazy in its actual extreme nature.
Oh yeah. I will say.
I mean,
as a side tangent,
I'd say we due to the IRA and stuff, and the Blitz, we've had some big events, but literally in just one push, that was just bizarre, just mental.
Peter was a good man. Something rare to find nowadays.
But I will say, as I said right at the beginning of this, when you mentioned the date and time, this is a fact, by the way. Information regarding some dubious nature around gambling, fraud, and stuff to do with the McDonald's monopoly thing. Its information was in. Its hard copy information, its only information was in the side of the Pentagon that was hit and was destroyed. And a case that could technically have completely destroyed McDonald's as a company disappeared that day because there was nothing left of it.
So what we're saying is McDonald's was behind 9/11.
I'm telling you that if you were going along one of those routes and you said, well, where's the money? Let's follow the money. Who's got the most to gain? One of the biggest companies in the world.
That was a joke, by the way. I don't think McDonald's did that.
No, neither do I. No, 100% neither do I. It is a complete conspiracy theory. There is absolutely no truth into thinking that they would have done something like that.
No, it's just, but it's just a coincidence. It's a hell of a coincidence.
If you ever want to drive someone down a rabbit hole for a laugh, it's very, and they like their conspiracy theories. It's very easy to convince them that McDonald's did 9/11.
Oh, trust me, that's probably a conspiracy theory around the internet. I mean,
you'd be very surprised at how very little people actually know this one.
But also, there's also, remember the. Excuse me, I apologise. Anyone who heard me bloody burping, but there's also there's the lizard people one that now. There's also remember Jax. Every celebrity in Hollywood is inverted. Remember, all the men are women and all the women are men.
Yeah, there's the new switch over. Yeah, David Icke got it wrong. They weren't lizard people.
No, I love the fact that's now apparently one of their lovely new conspiracy theories that they've started. That's
once again, I don't cheat now. I'm disingenuous to say this is a conspiracy theory. I definitely think this has the taste of a particular chat site trolling the world. I've not seen anyone actually, any of the people that normally are out there, big proponent sending these things out. I've not seen anyone do that. I've not seen a David Icke jump on this. As soon as I see David Icke jump on this, I'm right there with you. I'm like, right, boom. Let's listen to some of these tales because I need a good laugh. But right now, I'm just going to assume that they're just trying to stir up anger and hate amongst different communities. Which isn't what David Icke and those other people do. They truly, truly believe what they're saying and just want you to know.
Oh, I know. They're funny. It's just I find the excuses and the logic they come up with for it just kind of a little bit.
This is a distillate from the venom symbiote.
I mean,
just ridiculous because it's like.
Yeah.
How do you come up with these theories? They don't make any sense. I'm confused.
Well, I tell you now, there's one David Icke. I used to love watching all these sorts of things, not because I believe them, but because
you want to see how crazy they get.
Well, because I like stories. I like trying to create stories. And sometimes some of the weirdest shit you're ever going to be able to think of has already been thought of by one of these guys.
Oh yeah.
And like early Alex Jones before he became
the weird alt-right
evil
person
he became. Yeah. So I mean, he was kind of like a David Icke. But there was one DVD in particular, and I'll have to find it. I know it's still around at my friend's house somewhere because he's still got his entire DVD collection, amongst as well as many of mine that's still there. But it is a 5-hour lecture by David Icke. He just carries on, and there is a definitive point in it where he's got to the end of what he had planned, and then he is just freewheeling it, and you can see the ideas just popping into his head. He's like, yeah, and after the lizard people, because they're not really lizard people, because we're actually all in a simulation, and we know the simulation because we've been told about it. And he's talking about it, and halfway through, like you can see him get to the point and going, wait a minute, what am I talking about? This because we were told about this because of the Matrix. The Matrix was actually us telling us about this. And you're thinking, you should realise you've ripped off the Matrix halfway through telling us about the Matrix, motherfucker. And you know you have to call it out at this point. Come on, get to Star Trek. Tell us about your Enterprise. I mean, he's just... people out there that don't truly know who David Icke is and shit, he used to be a completely sensible sports journalist pundit on TV. Like, you would watch him on the BBC and go, ooh, what a respectable person. Until one day he came out on TV in the guise of being the respectable sports pundit and said, oh yes, I'm Jesus and the Queen is a lizard.
The Queen is a lizard. I still love that conspiracy theory of. I still love it because it's just ridiculous. It's silly. It's like, we are controlled by lizard people. I'm like,
yeah,
no.
As a sentence, I mean, I've seen this clip so many times, but as a full sentence on Terry Wogan, I am Jesus and the Queen is a lizard is up there with remove the head, destroy the brain, in my opinion. It's just perfect. It's a perfect sentence in a perfect place. And instantly I was like, I need to see whatever this man is telling me, because I know he's not stable or sane. But boy, is it going to be fun.
Yeah, it's just... Oh yeah, speaking of the show we've both been watching, which character am I currently speaking to, Jax? Agatha.
Oh.
It's the fact that Agatha Harkness is in this game as well. Hello, Agatha.
Weirdly, I actually just recently unlocked Agatha Harkness in the Marvel Strike Force game that I'm playing, and one of her. So I've got a comic book look, and I've got her TV WandaVision look.
place looks so lonely.
Actually, useless character so far.
What? She's useless at the minute.
Yeah.
Though, that episode today was absolutely perfect, all coming together. The episode last week, I absolutely loved the fact they went with the comics version of how Tommy getting his powers and everything. Not Tommy.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Billy becoming and everything, like, you know, Billy becoming who he is, which makes me think we're actually going to get the way that, you know, Wiccan survived the original. We're going to get that storyline of Wiccan. Not Wiccan, sorry, of Speed. And I feel like we are going to get in this the reveal that that I think magic might be, you know, Billy's like natural thing. But I have a feeling the body switching, they might just switch it to be, you know, to give him that element, make that be his mutant power. To go, because I feel like they are trying to slowly ramp up and go, yeah, mutants exist in the MCU. We've shown you several in She-Hulk. We've shown you Miss Marvel, who is, you know, now canonically a mutant, etc. And it's like, yeah, I kind of feel like they're just slowly built, and we've brought Deadpool into the MCU in a sort of way, roundabout way. So it's like, and, you know, Wolverine. And I do think, as I said at the start, that all they need to do, if they want to make like if Secret Wars is meant to be like the end of the current Marvel universe, Marvel films, and the start of the next set of Marvel films from the beginning, going back to the start, doing it all over again, you know, as a new universe where we establish this time all the characters are together and everything, yeah, from the start. Yep. I do think that scene we were sort of discussing earlier of, you know, having Logan being, you know, if you have Hugh Jackman as Logan back, of having a scene of him just going, hold on, I'll be right back, or something, and having, you know, the swirly portals open up behind him, behind the rest of them, and him coming through with the X-Men from, you know, the Fox X-Men, but in comic accurate costumes instead of, you know.
Yeah.
And I think if they do that, brilliant idea.
This is which side?
Mm-hmm.
I think a brilliant idea. They should do it. We're not going to probably get it, but if we did, it would be perfect.
If it was here, Autumn would show.
Because let's be
She
honest,
does not see it happening.
because it would be brilliant. It'd be one of those scenes of like, oh yeah, you just got, you know, one of those scenes of, oh yeah, you've just gotten there's your thing. Here's the X-Men. You're going to get one final glimpse of the Fox X-Men, a final send-off to them all. Because I really hope they get as many actors back as they can get back from all the different, you know, stuff. Just do as what Crisis on Infinite Earths did in the Flash show and the crossovers from them. Just do that and have us get to see all these different, you know, variants of the characters from all these various years. That, you know, the various attempts Marvel has tried over the years to actually, you know, make Marvel films or Marvel live action shows and stuff. Because it would be really, really fun. Oh, where's Nico? Because I need to find Nico. I've lost Nico in a minute. But yeah, it was one of those things. It's just that it would be a fun way of seeing everything. Of getting all these characters back, of getting all this back. It's a nice send off to all of them. You know, it's a nice final send off to all of them. And plus, you could have two. You could deliberately do the joke of having Chris Evans there twice, even though we just watched Johnny die, and do it as a laugh of just having Chris Evans there twice as Chris Evans as both Cap and Johnny, and have them point out that they look exactly the same.
Well, I think it would be funny, weirdly enough, having Cap in and like the Avengers in the TVA, and they see the video footage of Johnny being ripped to pieces like that, and they'll be like, "Does he look a bit like?"
No. I think the funnier one of doing it would have you'd have that. Then you just have you could if they've had Robert down as Tony instead of as Doom, just have him sat there going, "I thought you said language." Just bring that joke back. just that little reference all the way back to Age of Ultron. Cap, I thought you were telling us to mind your language.
Oh, really?
Son of, just shut up.
Well, on that note,
I think
I think it's a good time to run it down slightly.
This looks like it belongs.
It is a good time to probably say goodbye, but give me a moment.
It seems like
And it is now, as I'll say, goodbye. Say goodbye, Jax.